I bought a one-way ticket from New Zealand to Australia in 1982. As far as I can remember, I've been a clay-aholic. So when I was a kid on the farm, we were digging clay up and making things out of wood and all that sort of stuff. So I've been always interested in the materiality. At high school, they had a great ceramics department within the section within the art room. So my mum still brings out a little plate I made when I was in high school, embarrassing, where I basically just banged out a bit of clay. It was one of those ones where you're not really thinking what you're doing, and then dipped it in every glaze possible and fired it, and she brings it out and says, "This is by my son, who's an international ceramic artist." It's a bit embarrassing. I dug through a few years ago and found some report cards. One of them said that I had ability, but I tend to be a law unto himself. So I suppose you could interpret that as being reasonably clear or forthright in what I wanted to do. My works, I've sort of moved away from the traditional vessel-based, cups and plates a long time ago. And when I went through university at ECU, I was conscious that was where my preference was. Looking at, so the ideas that inform it is social foundations, how communities are formed and how collectively we're constructed, I suppose. And this is a good little example that you asked for this image to be put here, because this is my first attempt at trying to map my family tree. It gives you a sense of the complexity of the relationships we actually every day we swim in. We see ourselves as dealing with one or two people at a time. Maybe a large number than that occasionally, but this is sort of the thing that shapes us, I suppose. Paper clay is sort of, for me, it's a bit of a mixture. It's a paper which has a whole history in itself. And having been a perpetual student off and on over the years, I've put my paperwork into the clay, and I've also done paper sculptures up to 3 or 4 tonnes, so that sort of came out of people giving me paper to make my paper clay when I was a student, because you couldn't buy it. Also, paper comes from the organic. Paper comes from wood, plants and so on as fibre based, so you're bringing fibre, organic, to inorganic clay, soil. So it has a nice sort of connections in that sense for me. I was always gravitating towards inner city when I first arrived in Perth, and I'm not quite sure why. I've got a flippant answer, which is I grew up looking at mountains, and so you look up, so you orientate yourself towards where the mountain is. And in Perth we don't have that, but you have the CBD, so you lift your eyes up to the high rise. In inner city living, you can walk everywhere, which is time to think, and you meet people and all that sort of stuff. And you have much more of a sense of a community in this area, because people aren't just driving into the garage and closing the door behind them. A lot of my work had botanical sort of biomorphic references, because I'm walking, every time I walk in and out of the studio, I'm walking in a park, in nature, I suppose. And you see dozens and dozens of people walking past all day. So you're constantly exposed to, you're seeing people around. You're not in a socially isolated, attic somewhere, not seeing anybody for days on end. You see people walking past, and occasionally people come up and put their nose up to the windows, so you invite them and give them a guided tour. The studio is like a club in a sense, because we're supporting each other and doing our own thing, but that sense of comradeship that comes from it, and that sense of connection also operates outside within the wider ceramics community and the wider art community, and that extends overseas as well. That gives you a sense of support, a sense of, it becomes, if you're not careful, it becomes very isolated, but it doesn't dominate, but it provides, I think, a infrastructure that you can maintain an art practice.